everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the PowettPlay Podcast. It's me, Jordan Shannon. As always, I'm joined by Kieran Powell. How are you, Kai?
I'm not too bad, John. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you very much. So, the Test match, as it stands at this moment in time, would you say it's evenly poised?
I'd say probably the West Indies are actually ahead. When you look at the current situation with Australia being, 45 runs ahead,
Yep.
2 wickets down already,
Yep.
and you've got Nathan Lyon and obviously an uncertain Cam Green at the crease.
Yes.
I think that if the West Indies can strike early blows this morning and get Steve Smith and Travis Head in
Yep.
against that new ball and fresh bowlers as quickly as possible, definitely advantage to the West Indies if you could get Australia 4-5 down quickly.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So, with the game situated now, how do you see the West Indies? How do West Indies win this game now?
You don't want to be chasing more than 200 on this pitch. You've seen pretty much consistently how Caribbean pitches are.
Yeah.
You've seen the ball keeping low. You've seen it rolling. Um, Across both games now. It's already started to be up and down. So I think that from a West Indian standpoint,
Yeah.
they're gonna have to bowl good hard lengths, but have the ball finishing on the stump. So if it rolls or if it pops,
Yeah.
anything like that, you want to be finishing on the stump so you can get LBWs, gloved behind, you know, bowled, all these different options for dismissals come into play, as
Yeah.
opposed to going down a channel that you would on a traditional pitch and limiting your options to getting caught somewhere
Yeah.
in the outfield. So I think that's what I expect to see from the West Indies. Obviously, as I mentioned in the last game, a lot of variations as well, but still being patient. So
Yeah.
you're looking to see some balls cross seamed. Obviously, the three-quarter seam ball is pretty
Yeah.
much stock standard these days. Um, and just try and get the ball to misbehave as much as possible with it finishing on the stump.
Yeah. Do you see spin coming into it at all? Do you see a big role for Austin or not?
I don't necessarily know if it's even
Well,
needed. I
maybe
think
the
that the
line looked like it
pitch
got a few to go. That's later on in the evening, I thought.
probably, but more so from wide. To the
Yeah,
left-handers,
left-hander.
it was
Yeah.
spinning from wide, and then to the right-handers, it was spinning from straight. So it's not
Yeah.
finishing on the stump. So
Yeah.
technically, those shouldn't be threatening
Yeah. True.
options either
Yeah.
side. If it was spinning from wide of the right-hander, finishing on the stump, or
Yeah.
spinning from straight for the left-hander, then that brings obviously the ball that goes straight around into play, and then you have lots of more of dismissals. But realistically, it's not like misbehaving for the spinners as much as it is for the seamers. I think the spinners could potentially come in and play a holding role, but if the pitch continues to misbehave and if West Indies can strike early, I
Yes.
do expect this game to move pretty quickly today. Um, in that instance, Australia obviously are going to try and score quickly. I mean, Australia's bulk of their runs have come from numbers 5, 6, and 7
Yeah.
with
Carey,
with Travis Head,
Webster.
Webster, and Carey.
Yes.
So the West Indies, even though I said that they need to make some early inroads, obviously, and try and get rid of Cam Green, who seems susceptible to driving the ball on a
Yeah,
fuller
that
length.
little that corridor
Um,
through there, really. Yeah.
yeah. So how I expect the West Indies to set him up is hard length straight,
Yeah.
finishing on the stump with the odd teaser full and wide,
Yeah.
luring him into a drive.
Yeah.
And then try and get rid of Nathan Lyon as quickly as possible as well. You saw he got hit yesterday. He wasn't
Yeah.
very comfortable against that.
Sure. No, no.
So obviously mix in the odd short ball,
Yes.
but try and finish on the stumps as well as much as possible for him. He will get himself up because he's a tail ender, so that's just natural. And then you get Steve Smith in, who I don't know what the plan is for him. Hopefully he does something and gets out again. But
Yeah.
he's sort of the main man once he's in the lineup. Obviously, he's the main man that you want to get out because he has, I guess, the most varied tool set to handle different conditions
I was
across
just
the
going to
world.
say that. Yeah.
So he'll find a way to, I guess, stick it out and get Australia
And
to a
I think he likes
position.
that innings. Yes.
Yeah, and get Australia to a position of safety where he can just drop anchor, as you mentioned, and other guys bat around him and try and score quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And with that in mind, what you were saying, they've got a fact in their head. Sorry, well, West Indies, they've got to try and find ball out for less than 150 as it stands now. I'd like to see. I think that big part of the game is when once Carey gets in with the tail or Bo Webster's with the tail, because that's when they've had that spiking runs, which could just take the game away from West Indies at that point. So I think they're going to need a really clear strategy of how to be bowling once batter and one of the tail come in, really.
I think even more important than that is field placing as well. They
Yeah, well,
need to
yeah,
have they need to have in-out fields because you can be bowling and executing a plan, but
yeah,
then you're not protecting the boundaries. You know, for any good shot that the Australians play today, you want them to get one. You know,
yeah,
hit the ball to your sweepers max two, but you don't want to be allowing them to get boundaries and getting off to a quick
yeah,
start, quick
yeah.
40, 50 runs because every run saved obviously is a run you don't have to make. So the
No,
West Indies need to protect the boundaries as much as possible, while still attacking and having guys in catching positions.
yeah, it's a great point you make there about that in outfield. You know, you see it a lot, don't you, in Asia, really? You know, in that sort of that attacking sort of role that you've got to try and do. So it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. But and I think whatever the score and whatever West Indies end up chasing, they have to make sure from a batting perspective that someone is not getting to 40 and getting out.
I think, and that's what's been, I guess, disappointing and frustrating about the way John Campbell has been getting out because
Yeah,
he's done the hard work 2 of the 3 innings thus far, and he's looked to be the one batter that gets in more so than the others, but then he gets in and gets out. And that's probably where the West Indies need him to. He's done all the hard work. He's taken all the risks early up. That's where the West Indies probably just need him to just like buckle down probably
yeah,
a bit, and even if he doesn't score as quickly, if he could just hold up one end because he
yeah,
looks the most comfortable batter,
yeah.
then that gives scope for the rest of the guys, similar to Steve Smith, to play
Exactly that.
around him and be a bit more expressive.
Definitely.
Um, so I guess that will be his role
Yeah.
in the second innings, and it'd be important in the West Indies run chase. Having said that, I think that the West Indies on a whole need to go in with an intent to score in the second innings. I don't think it could be a situation where you just stick around and there's going to be lots of time left because the game is moving that fast. But you
Yeah.
can't think I've got 2 days left or I've got a day and a half left. Like you need to have that positive mindset with that intent to score. Because if you just stick around
Yeah.
this bowling attack and the pitch conditions, I mean, it basically comes down to, I guess, who has a bit of the luck as well in the game in terms of which team does the pitch not play as many tricks for,
Yeah.
balls popping, keeping low, and which team sort of gets the rub of the
The
green
rub of the green
with
with
the
that.
with the umpiring calls as well. Because
Oh,
yesterday, I think that last dismissal was not out. To
oh,
me, that catch with
Paget.
Travis Head, no, that catch with Travis Head, that
Oh, sorry.
last
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
for the
Sorry.
West
Yeah.
Indies, I think that was not out. But I mean, it was given out. But for me, looking at that, I think that clearly bounced and he picked it up, as opposed to some of the decisions we've seen in the other tests that I thought were out but were given
Not out.
not out. You know, so it's been very interesting, the third umpire
Yeah.
decisions that have happened throughout this test. And I mean, because the test matches have been that close, they have a bigger consequence each time a decision goes wrong. And for me, it's probably, I would say, looking at it now holistically, in my mind, the West Indies has probably the third best seam bowling attack in the world, only second to Australia, who's number one, and South Africa, who's number two.
I'll take
I
that.
mean, you look at England, it's
Well, you did
flat
have a laugh.
pitches, not really running through
You had a laugh at
many
me yesterday
people.
at my comments as well about
Yeah,
my.
yeah. But no, realistically, you look at it like England generally are chasing scores of three, four, 500. This West Indies bowling attack are getting people out for 250, 280, 300. That's why
Yeah.
I said in the last episode, if the West Indies can get 275 to 350,
Yeah.
they'll be competitive because the bowling attack has shown consistently that they're going to get people out in that range. And the West Indies got to 250 and they're being competitive. So if they got to 275 and it's pretty much a stalemate going into the second innings, I'm sure the bowling attack will perform again. And you look at the other bowling attacks across the world, the New Zealands, the Pakistans, the England, as I mentioned, I don't think that they have a thrill that is performing as consistently and as potently as the
No.
West Indies, barring on Australia and the South Africa. And I think that's why this series is so competitive.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. But obviously, we are gonna do a full episode reviewing the test anyway, so we can break that down in a bit more detail. But going back to your point there, mate, about the umpiring decisions, I would just rather than see be consistent. So if there's
Yeah,
any doubt, you're just going not out, but that's
yeah,
consistent through first innings to fourth innings. Just
yeah.
that's it. It's fair then
100%.
across the board.
100%. And then everybody knows where it stands. Like
Any
it's
doubt? Yeah,
yeah. That so you review, it's generally gonna be not out. Everyone knows it's consistent, it's fair,
correct.
it's equal.
Yeah,
But when you have situations where you feel as though the rub of the green is just always, and you look at, for example, the England India series, it always almost feels as though the rub of the green is going towards India because obviously India's cricketing's powerhouse, as much as
yes,
England is one of the big three. So you understand what I mean when I say like it always feels as though the rub of the green goes to the bigger nation.
yeah. Yeah, I do. I do understand, obviously, and we've seen it as well. These elements, obviously, we've picked up over the past, few weeks. But from now, I want you to give us your prediction. I don't want to just give you the prediction of like who wins. I want you to sort of try and break it down into a little bit of intrinsics and see how you see the game panning out now.
West Indies will need to take at least 3 wickets in the first session today, and they'll need to get Australia out for under 200. That's the overall lead. I think once it gets past that 200 run mark, we've seen on these Caribbean pitches, it gets a bit tricky because not only are the pitches a bit tricky, but generally the outfields in the Caribbean are a lot heavier
Yeah,
than other places in the world as well. So when you do play a good shot, it doesn't run away for four. You probably get one or two, and that's why Caribbean players tend to muscle the ball more than other players around the world. So, in order for the West Indies to win, they'll need to bowl Australia out for an overall lead of around 200, and then they'll need two players to get 50 plus scores and a lot of contributions, but it won't be a straightforward 200 for two, 200 for four. It will be something that comes down to the wire with probably a Shamar Joseph hitting the winning run or an Anderson Phillip hitting the winning. So it's going to be an interesting game either way. But anything beyond that 200 mark on this pitch, I think it gets a bit tricky.
yeah. I'll be honest with you. I think that from what I see, I think that it'll depend on. I agree with what you're saying about the morning session, but I think what the key part will be, and I mentioned it before, would be making sure that West Indies wrap the innings up efficiently and the tail doesn't wag, and whoever's in at that moment doesn't end up being on 30 when, say, um, Cummins and Hazelwood and start coming and end up 70 not out. We have to wrap that innings up in an efficient manner, and that's where I think the game will be in the balance. And that's what I hope where, like you mentioned about this field and that we get it, the West Indies get it nailed and they can win that test match then. But again, like you mentioned, someone's got to go score 50 as well.
Another interesting point. If you think back to, I guess, the most recent podcast we did during the England and Ireland series, and
Yes.
I've been calling for Brandon King to bat at what number?
Yeah, you have. Number 4.
I think I'll be onto a lot of things that people aren't necessarily saying, but no, I think that Brandon King, and I actually do genuinely think as well that number four, he will have his best format of cricket for the West Indies will end up being Test cricket.
Well, I was just going to say the consistency across the board will help him as well across formats. So if you leave him at 4, then yeah, no, look, the way you're speaking, the way you break it down, I'm not just saying it because we're speaking to each other right now, but it's thought out. It's an educated decision, and like you said, you mentioned that. I think he will go down to number 4. By the way, in the when they play the one days.
I'm hoping he does, but that's left to be
That's a,
seen. I
that's a
think that
different
yeah,
conversation. Yeah, pretty
I
different.
think that Shea is the opener, but let's try and
That's
get past today's
exactly.
heartaches and heart pains and see how it goes.
But the one thing as well, so it's perfectly timed for me in the UK. It's great to watch just in the evenings and at night. It's brilliant. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been very, very competitive to watch. And I just hope that, they can pull something together in this today. The state of the game will be determined by today, really. And I just hope that they find a way of sticking to the plans as you mentioned, and taking those catches as well. I know we have touched on it, but there's going to be chances, and you've got to make them stick. And when the game is in the balance like it is now.
100%. That's something that we didn't mention, but I think that's something that you brought up that definitely rightly deserves its own attention, taking the chances, because I think it's some 8 catches or so that the West Indies have dropped across the first 3 innings of the series. So
Can't
I
happen.
mean, you've got 30 wickets, you've created 38 chances. So technically, you've
Need
created
another innings.
almost an extra innings
Yeah.
of opportunities for Australia to bat
Yeah.
across a test and a half, which you don't want to give good players
No.
second chances at that
Yeah.
level.
You can't. You can't. But yeah, we'll touch base anyway when the game finishes. Um, and yeah, it'll be intriguing to see how it goes. But thank you very much. I won't go into too much about the liking and subscribing. You know the score with that now, guys. We do appreciate it all. But do let us know what you think about the state of the game and how you see it going over the next, day and a day and a half, how it all pans out, who you say is going to pick, who's going to play key roles, partnerships. Let us know your thoughts because we do really appreciate it. So thank you very much for joining us on the PowettPlay Podcast. Cheers, guys.